Have you ever wondered how the modern world got so messy? A lot of it goes back to one event, one catastrophic, completely avoidable disaster, the First World War. We often hear about the heroism, the trenches, the poetry. But what if I told you that the entire war, a conflict that killed over 20 million people and shattered empires, was fundamentally a giant political mistake? A colossal failure of diplomacy, judgment, and basic common sense that nobody truly wanted, but nobody knew how to stop. Let's peel back the layers of propaganda and national pride to see World War I for what it really was, the single greatest political blunder in modern history. It all started with a gunshot in Sarajevo. June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austrian throne, is assassinated by a nationalist. A shocking event, for sure. A regional crisis, absolutely. But a reason for the entire continent to burst into flames? Not necessarily. Austria-Hungary, seeing its chance to crush Serbian nationalism, issues an ultimatum to Serbia. It was deliberately designed to be rejected, giving them the perfect excuse to declare war. This is our first major mistake. Instead of seeking a measured, diplomatic solution to a murder, Austria-Hungary chose escalation. They wanted to teach Serbia a lesson, but they ended up setting their own house on fire. Now, here's where the dominoes really start to fall, thanks to a tangled web of alliances. Think of it like a group of friends where everyone has sworn to have each other's back in a fight, no matter how dumb the fight is. Germany had promised Austria-Hungary a blank check, essentially saying, "Whatever you do, we support you." This was mistake number 2. German leadership, led by Kaiser Wilhelm II, could have urged restraint. They could have told their ally to calm down, to negotiate. Instead, they gave them a green light for war, believing any conflict would be quick and localized. They catastrophically miscalculated. On the other side, Russia saw itself as the protector of the Slavic peoples, including the Serbs. When Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, Russia began to mobilize its massive army. They weren't necessarily eager for war, but they felt their prestige and influence were on the line. This mobilization triggered Germany's own war plan, the infamous Schlieffen Plan. This plan was designed to fight a two-front war against both France and Russia. The catch: it was incredibly rigid. It dictated that if Russia mobilized, Germany must attack France first through neutral Belgium to knock them out quickly before turning to face Russia. And there's mistake number 3, a fatal one. The military timetables took over. Diplomacy was thrown out the window. German generals told the Kaiser that the plan, once started, couldn't be stopped or altered. The invasion of Belgium was a political and moral disaster. It guaranteed that Great Britain, which had pledged to protect Belgian neutrality, would enter the war. A regional Balkan conflict had now officially spiraled into a full-blown European war, drawing in every major power. Leaders on all sides were trapped by their own rigid war plans, their egos, and their alliances. They were like sleepwalkers, stumbling into a catastrophe they all claimed they didn't want. So, why did they do it? Why did rational leaders make such irrational choices? A big part of it was a toxic brew of nationalism, imperialism, and militarism that had been simmering for decades. Each country believed in its own cultural and military superiority. German leaders felt encircled by their rivals and believed war was inevitable, so why not have it sooner rather than later? French politicians were still bitter about their defeat in the Franco-Prussian War decades earlier and dreamed of reclaiming lost territory. British leaders were determined to maintain their naval supremacy and global empire. Every nation was playing a high-stakes game of geopolitical chess, viewing war as a legitimate tool of statecraft, not the absolute failure of it. The tragedy is that there were so many off-ramps, so many moments where the disaster could have been averted. What if the Kaiser had reigned in Austria-Hungary? What if Russia had only partially mobilized, signaling its intent without triggering Germany's rigid plan? What if Britain had made its position clearer from the start, warning Germany, unequivocally, that invading Belgium meant war? But at every turn, leaders chose escalation over de-escalation. They were prisoners of their own pride and paranoia. They gambled with the lives of millions, assuming the war would be over by Christmas. And the consequences of this mistake were world-altering. The war didn't solve any problems, it created a dozen more. For great empires, the German, the Austro-Hungarian, the Ottoman, and the Russian crumbled into dust. The political map of Europe and the Middle East was redrawn, creating new countries and new conflicts that haunt us to this day. The immense human cost, the lost generation, scarred the psyche of Europe forever. The economic devastation paved the way for the Great Depression. And perhaps the most damning legacy of all? The brutal and punitive Treaty of Versailles. Instead of seeking a just and stable peace, the victorious Allies imposed harsh terms on Germany, crippling its economy and humiliating its people. This wasn't a resolution, it was a recipe for revenge. It created the perfect breeding ground for extremist ideologies to flourish, directly leading to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the even more horrific Second World War just a decade later. In many ways, World War II wasn't a new war, but a continuation of the first, the inevitable result of a peace process founded on vengeance instead of reconciliation. So, when we look back at World War I, we shouldn't just see a tragic, inevitable clash of empires. We should see it as a monumental failure of statesmanship, a lesson in how pride, rigid thinking, and a failure to communicate can lead to unimaginable suffering. The leaders of different paths to solve their disputes through diplomacy and compromise. They failed, and the world paid a price that we are still paying today. It's a sobering reminder that the decisions made in the halls of power have profound, real-world consequences, and that the greatest battles are often not the ones fought on the battlefield, but the ones fought to avoid it. Thanks for watching. If this look at history gives you a new perspective, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. See you next time.